What's up, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Between the Cons. My name is Chris, and with me today, Mr. Naughty List.
Ahoy.
Ahoy.
Yeah.
He's here.
You know, that's not going to change ever.
Yeah. What was the other thing that you used to say?
That's it.
I thought you had two. Yarg.
No, oh, yeah, Yarg.
Ahoy.
Yarg.
And then I would say something, and then you just go Yarg.
Yeah, well, because there's that huge connection between my name and my catchphrase.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
All the senses.
No sense. It makes no sense. But anyways, we're here. Thanks for tuning in with us. Thanks for hitting us up on the internet this week if you did so. And for those of you that have left a review on the iTunes store, appreciate that. Or Google Play or whichever. Well, we're here. We got a Topic Thunder episode for you. We figured we haven't talked about Dark Tower enough on the show. So with it coming out next weekend, or I guess this upcoming weekend, and us doing a roundtable review for that, we should probably go ahead and tell you some things about Dark Tower, since we've never done that before.
Yeah, because you know us nerds, we just like to go on and on about the same thing repeatedly.
Right. But we're just going to talk about some of the things we want to see, some of the things we don't want to see. If you haven't if you haven't read the books,
Spoiler alert, hashtag.
Yeah, we'll have some spoilers.
Mostly spoilers. If you've never read it, everything is going to be a spoiler.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So this is going to be a pretty heavy spoiler episode, I guess.
Yeah.
If you haven't read the books. If you have read the books, it'll be interesting because maybe we'll miss something and you can call us out on the internet for it.
And totally talk to us on the internet.
Please do. It's like the only place we're okay at being social.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's jump into it. Let's talk about the Dark Tower in Topic Thunder. So like I said, we are going to talk about some things that we want to see, some things we don't want to see in the Dark Tower coming out this weekend on August 4th. So, take it away, boss.
Yeah, I think one thing that I really want to see, given that the main antagonist in this movie is Walter O'Dim / Randall Flagg / the Man in Black. Not the Men in Black, mind you. Very different. Will Smith is cast in this movie, and Tommy Lee Jones. Okay. And we're done. All right, good. I think I'm really excited to actually see their portrayal of him. I want to see him become a more kind of well-rounded and presented character in the movie than I kind of feel like he was in the book. I actually feel like he was pretty flat in the book. He was just kind of this guy doing this other guy's bidding, and he hated Roland, but we don't really know why. And
I think he had a pretty adverse role in the book.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely the antagonist.
Not adverse, inverse role to Roland, where you see,
yeah.
Huh?
The foil, to use literary terms.
Yeah, but he in the books we see Roland grow and mature and all this, and we see the Man in Black in The Gunslinger was this very deep, leering, maniacal, chess-esque kind of character.
Yeah.
And then as the books go on, he's just there.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what I didn't like, right? Because we see all this growth from Roland in the books, and then in the books the Man in Black is just this magician who's a bad guy that wants to destroy the world and is helping bring that about. But we really don't get any more than that, and he comes to a very inauspicious end in the books. So I think with him being the primary antagonist in the movie, not the Crimson King, I'm super excited and really hopeful, especially because considering it's Matthew McConaughey playing him. And I think he's brilliant at playing kind of that complex, brooding, like kind of dark character that
Right.
there's more going on than appears on the surface. So I want to see a more rich, I guess, kind of fleshed out character of the Man in Black in the movie than I personally feel like I got in the book.
Right. Yeah, so kind of adverse. There we go again with Chris using the wrong words. My response to that is I don't want to see. We're going to be playing this good cop bad cop game for this whole episode. What I don't want to see is the gunslinger Idris Elba mopey
Meow, I'm sad.
Seconds away from tears that we've gotten in every trailer so far. I not in the gunfighting scenes, but in the trailers, every time you see him when he's not shooting a gun, he just looks like he's about to cry. He just looks mopey and sad and all this. And that's not the gunslinger. He's a very stoic, he's what?
He's way more complex than that.
Yeah, and it just looks like, he's lost a lot in his life. He's gone through some tough times, for sure. But that doesn't mean he's about to cry forever.
I'm wondering how much of that is just Idris Elba's eyes are very heavy.
Just the way his face looks.
He kind of looks sad all the time unless he's actually smiling, and then it's kind of like a sad smile. So
yeah, but there's the one scene where he's looking down the barrel of his gun and he just looks like he's about to cry.
Yeah, and it's all right, dude, you're way more
be stoic, not sad.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I don't want to see is kind of that same. Because in the books we had that growth. We had him be a very cold, determined person in the first book. And then as it went on, it was the coldness started to go away.
Well, because he became part of a quartet again. He had family again.
Right.
And that's what I loved. One of the central themes about the book was that loneliness is this kind of destructive thing, whereas goodness, or being part of something, being part of a group, whether it's him as a young boy with his friends or him later with, the rest of the characters, that's ultimately, I think, what brings about the redemption of the whole story. And right. So I agree. I hope that they don't just make him I've lost everything, so now I've got to kill people and save the world. Okay.
Yeah, John Wick, Wild West edition. Sci-fi Wild West edition.
Yeah, we've got John Wick. He's cornered that market. I don't need to I'd probably go off on a bunch of people for killing my dog too, but I don't need another movie like that.
Right.
Especially when it's based off of something that's way more fleshed out and complex.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Speaking of complexity and the quartet and all that, I actually really hope that they bring kind of the subtlety of that world into this, whether it be the connections with the number 19 or how we see parallels between Roland's world and our world of see the turtle with enormous girth, seeing him being one of the creatures that guards the beam in Roland's world, and then seeing it show up multiple times in our world. I really love that subtlety of cause a wheel, we're connected, and there's that kind of subtle magic. There's never any overbearing magic, I don't think. There's times when
talking to each other inside their heads, I think is about as far as it goes.
Well, and the demons,
right.
And some of the stuff that Walter does, with the curse and that kind of thing, but it's not Harry Potter magic, and it's subtle, and I loved that about it. And so I really hope they bring some of that into the world, and it's just not I hope that the only representation of that is not the Man in Black shooting blasts of magic from his hand in a
Oh my
fight.
gosh, I would
You
be
know,
so
like,
mad.
that's going to be like just that's lazy, So I really hope that I would love to see some of that subtlety brought in, because I think that's because that's that kind of bridge between the two worlds that I think
Right.
really needs to be there, and part of what makes that story really fun.
Yeah, and in opposition of that,
An adversary of that.
an adversary of that, the antagonist to that statement would be, I don't want to see too much, because the thing about the Dark Tower is it's 8 books. And
8? That was 9.
I think it's 8 books. Gunslinger, Wizard and Glass. I'm out of order already. Drawing of the Three, The Wastelands,
Wolves of the Kala.
Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, Dark Tower. Oh, and then Wind Through the Keyhole. So it is 9.
Oh yeah, that half book.
Yeah, book 4.5. Wind Through the Keyhole. So 9 books. It's 9 books, and it's a 95-minute movie. Like we already know for certain that it's a 95-minute movie. So if we take a 95-minute movie and condense everything into it, like we've been told that it's a sequel, but huge spoiler alert.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, huge spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't read the books that might want to or is like currently reading them. The book 9 or book 8 of the series, The Dark Tower, creates a cycle through the Horn of Eld.
Itself.
Yeah, so it creates a sequel, or it creates a cycle through the Horn of Eld, and a sequel for the books is basically just a new first book, just a new gunslinger.
It is itself.
Yeah.
It's a Inception, if you will.
So what I don't want to see with it being a sequel is like rushing through the entire story to get to the end again. But it's like there's a lot of character setup that has to happen. I mean, the gunslinger was only the book itself was only the gunslinger Roland and the kid, I hate myself, Jake Chambers. So it was only those two. Those are the only two main protagonists in the movie. But we already have like smaller parts and characters from throughout the 9 books.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I'm just afraid that they're going to try and condense everything into it when all it needs to be is like character development, story development, conclusion.
Yeah, you can have the core of the
climax
story,
and conclusion.
Yeah, you can have the core of the whole story, which essentially is evil is trying to destroy the Dark Tower, good is trying to save it. The Dark Tower is this, essentially the center of all things. It holds up the universe. So it's a classic kind of like good versus evil, all racing, all coming towards the same point. You can have that.
Yeah.
With just, honestly, you could have had that with just Roland and Walter, but they decided to bring more people in which, to go off your point, I'm curious and a little hesitant, I guess, to see how they're gonna bring in some of the characters that have been cast, how they're gonna bring them into the story without, feeling way too all over the place.
Yeah, and they got like a freaking A-list actor, or I guess A- list actor, to play Jake's mom.
Like, because she had such a huge role.
Jake's mom and Jake's dad is also cast as well. But like Jake's parents are only in the books when basically they are asked to seek psychiatric help for Jake because he's like drawing really disturbing things.
Yeah.
Like that's the only time that they appear in the books. So, and then we have like the vampires from Per Callahan's storyline.
You've got the arc. You've got Dr. Hotchkiss from Song of Susanna. Like Pimley from the Breakers. There's so many characters from so many different arcs in the story that it's like at least they didn't pull in anybody from Wolves of the Kala, and you only get, I think, Susan from Wizard and Glass.
Right.
So I'm thinking flashback. That's
Yeah.
that's an easy thing to handle. But all these I'm interested to see why they picked and put in who they did.
Well, what I was saying for our listeners, what I was saying to Cole before we started the episode was, when you go back and think on the book one, The Gunslinger, and you look at the Dark Tower's first couple trailers, or actually all of the trailers, it looks like it is going to be a flashback kind of movie. And it kind of looks like it's going to be a film one of a series. I don't know that for a fact, but that's kind of what it looks like, because there are scenes from Wizard and Glass where the village is being burned and invaded, and Susan Delgado's there. And then you look at the cast list and you have everybody we just talked about, Dr. Hotchkiss, the vampires, cult followers, all these other small characters that had small snippets of other books throughout the entire series. So I don't know if I'm nervous about it, but what I have a feeling might happen is it's going to be its own inclusive story for the Dark Tower, but it's going to set itself up that if it's successful, we will see more of them.
Do you think they'll try to do that?
I don't
because
know.
if they get to the tower, then what's the point?
But the thing is in the Gunslinger, the first Gunslinger, they're following the Man in Black. The Gunslinger, Roland, sacrifices Jake, basically. Chooses to continue to pursue him over saving Jake. When in that scene, Walter, the Man in Black, gives Roland a vision of the tower being destroyed. We don't actually ever see them, and I might be wrong in this statement, but at least from what I can remember in the trailers, we don't see them actually at the tower.
That's true. Yeah. It might have been a vision or a...
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is this is going to be very similar to the Gunslinger. We have the same characters. And a lot of these other characters like Susan Delgado and the vampires and Dr. Hotchkiss, those are going to be flashbacks or flash forwards.
Or just giving us their side of the story, in parallel, but we don't actually see that in the books until the very end. So it might be something like that too.
Yeah. So I have a feeling it's going to be a setup, because two of the main characters from the whole series are missing.
Yeah, two. Oh my gosh, that's. I want to see it, but I know I'm not, and I'm beyond salty. How in the world do you have the Dark Tower without Eddie and Susanna? The only
one of them has a book title.
The only two people more important than those two characters are Roland and Jake. I actually think that Eddie and Susanna are more important than Walter.
Yeah. And the fact that we don't see anybody from Eddie Dean's storyline.
Yeah.
Any of the the mob guys,
or his brother,
or his nobody, none of those people are on the cast list, and they're involved with not the Somber Corporation, but the other one, Positronics.
North Central Positronics.
They're involved in all of that. like mischievousness, that shady stuff with the tech,
Mm-hmm.
and then the tech corporation and all that over this like lot of land. Like that's a huge story arc. That's a huge part of the overall story.
Protecting the rose.
Yeah. And we don't see any of that in here. The fact that Susanna, like
I don't know. I have Dr. Hotchkiss without Susanna.
like Oscar, what's his name? Her caretaker.
I don't remember.
The guy that her dad sold the company to.
Yeah, eventually ran the company.
Right.
Or the
He's
tech
not in it. Like, and he's the one that ran the tech corporation. So there's that whole aspect of that story that's a huge part of the story, way bigger than the vampires. Tell you that. Like, that was like 80 pages, which 80 pages sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of the 4,500 page book series, 80 is a joke. So
Yeah.
I because of that, it makes me believe this is not the only Dark Tower movie we'll be getting unless it tanks.
Yeah. Which hopefully it doesn't.
Which hopefully it doesn't. And Stephen King movies have done pretty well, historically speaking. But this is also the most interesting of the Stephen King books.
Well, it's the most meta of Stephen King books for sure.
Well, because it's not a horror. This is his like
Ode to Tolkien.
ode to Tolkien. Yeah, it's his fantasy novel. So everybody knows Stephen King for Carrie and The Shining and It and stuff like that, but not so much for a Wild West fantasy series, saga, if you will. So it's very strange. I want one day on film for The Wolves of Kala to be its own movie.
Yeah.
That's my favorite book.
So cool.
But yeah, I guess that part makes me nervous. Like, is this setting itself up to be a series of movies instead of just a movie? It's a cool thought and a scary thought.
Yeah. I agree. So getting back on track with what we want to see and what we don't want to see, I think obviously is gunfights, because even just from the trailers with like the reloading and
oh my gosh,
the sniper shot with the revolver that he does, I am so excited because good gunfights literally can be like a saving grace for a movie. I'm looking at you, Suicide Squad. You know, like, what do we remember from Wanted? Like the gunfights. So an entire, like, a movie that's based on the series where the whole thing is predicated around a gunslinger. If these gunfights aren't just like the most awesome, amazing, crazy things I've seen on film, I'm gonna be like just really disappointed.
Yeah, and
if
I think
the trailers
kind of have to.
Though, I think we're gonna be blown away.
Yeah, and I think they kind of have to. I mean, especially out of the scenes that we've seen in the trailers, it's mostly slow motion, but I feel like that's going to be kind of like the room spinning in the Matrix, like the icing on top. I totally hear where you're coming from, and I agree with where you're coming from, but at the same time, I don't want to see too many gunfights that it's just a gunfighting movie.
Yeah.
Like, I think
it's
right. I think there has to be some aspect of it. Like, so like it's 95 minutes. Like, too long of a gunfight is going to feel like it's the whole movie. So I don't want that, because there's so much more to the Dark Tower than gunfighting.
Yeah.
Although the gunfighting is awesome.
Yeah.
Like in Wolves of the Kala, when Jake like throws 5 plates in the air and shoots them all down without breaking eye contact. A 13-year-old kid. Like, that's the freaking coolest. But I don't want to see just gunfights. But I am excited for the tasty gunfights we're going to get.
Oh, yeah. Tasty little gunfights. Yeah, I think that most of what I really want to say, the last one that we have on the list for what I want to see is something that I know I'm not going to see because I want to see Eddie and Suze. Because how do you have the Dark Tower without them? But if maybe we'll see them if this is like you think of if this doesn't bomb, we'll get another movie and they'll introduce them because we really don't see them until the drawing of 3. So it could be something along those lines. Like I'm confused about certain things, like how you have Dr. Hotchkiss without Suze because that's his whole purpose for being there. Pimley and the Breakers, like Eddie and Suze are like critical parts of that story arc. So
right. Well, and there's this one thing in if I may, there's this one thing in the cast listing where Dominique Danielle is listed as scared woman, and that's it. And then there's a guy, Alfredo Narciso, I don't know, Narciso. He's listed without a role at all, and they're right next to each other.
Yeah.
So scared woman in combination with Dr. Hotchkiss makes sense.
Yeah. Although
and Alfredo fella might be Eddie Dean.
Yeah. If Dominique is cast as Suzanne, I'm going to be a little upset.
Yeah. But
she's, not African American from what I can tell from her photo.
Yeah, but
that's kind of critical.
Kind of holds a big weight in her backstory for sure.
Yeah. So I like that idea of like maybe they're going to kind of set us up.
They might show it and then maybe at the end of the movie
throw us their name or something. Yeah.
Or maybe even just the cards.
Yeah.
Like the tarot cards.
Yeah.
So like Roland and Jake walk off into the distance and then like the camera pans down and we see the tarot cards like laying in the sand or something.
Yeah. Although I will say if that's the route that they take, they should have called the movie The Gunslinger, not The Dark Tower.
Yeah, but the Gunslinger, I don't know. I think The Dark Tower is the name to get everybody hooked because it's based on the Dark Tower series. Yeah. And then the next one is The Dark Tower Drawing of the 3.
Yeah. And then the last one is The Dark Tower, the Dark Tower.
And then the last one is
The End of All Things, Ka is a Wheel.
Hashtag Ka is a Wheel. The Dark Tower Destruction. I don't know. Resurrection. The Dark Tower Rises. I don't know. Anyways, I'm done. But yeah, I think that is why I think that this will be a setup movie.
Yeah.
Because two characters, one of which literally had their own book.
Yep.
Aren't in this movie. And that makes me think it's going to be the Gunslinger on film with more flashbacks and flash forwards. So, I don't know. But we'll see what happens.
I kind of feel like that's the conclusion that you and I have come to, and probably the Ginger Giant as well. It's just like who have read through the books and it's just like we'll see what this movie is like.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it can get a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm still gonna go see it.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, especially
I just hope it doesn't get a 5%.
I'll be really sad. I don't think it will. I'd be surprised. Honestly, I'll be surprised if it gets like high 80s and up, or like mid 80s and up. I think it'll probably be one of those like mid 70s movies.
Yeah.
Just because of what it's trying to do,
Yeah.
But I'm excited about it, even just from the trailers. Unless the trailers are the only good parts in the whole movie. I think it'll be good, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. I'm going to show up and say, take my money and go in and sit down and eat it up. So
yeah, I just hate that it comes out in a week and there's still nothing on Rotten Tomatoes about it.
Yeah, super secretive.
Yeah, like there are other movies that are coming out on the same day that have reviews and stuff on Rotten Tomatoes, but Dark Tower doesn't for some stupid reason.
Yeah.
So. Oh well. Anyways, Dark Tower, go see it. Comes out this weekend. We'll talk about it next Monday. If you've read the books, if you haven't read the books, let us know. Like, hit us up on the internet. Tell us what you're excited to see, what you're not excited to see, etc. Other things of that nature, and then just make sure you tune in on Monday and check it out. But really quick before we bounce, let's talk about some jams.
What's your jam?
Hey, Chris.
Yow.
What's your jam?
So my jam, I think I've talked about it on the show before. I've started a small business making barbecue sauce. It's called Donald Ray's Barbecue Sauce. In about a month and some change, I'm gonna do a little promo party to like get a video and some photos and stuff like that. To promote it, yeah. And that'll I'll put that on an Indiegogo page and then use that to get some of the bigger startup funds that I haven't gotten yet for things that I haven't gotten yet. But for that promo party, I was thinking about renting a big barrel grill that I could smoke all the meats in and stuff like that for the party. Everywhere I looked, it was like $100 for a day just to rent a grill. So I was like, okay, that's crazy. Let me look up how much I can get a grill, a big grill. So I found one. It's 6 feet by 3 feet. Pretty much 6 feet by 3 feet, and more like 2 feet. 6 feet by 2 feet. Yeah. And it was on sale for $150. So I got it, and it's really nice, and I like it. It's got a firebox, so it's an offset smoker. Really cool. Really happy about it. And it's currently outside right now, seasoning. Yeah. I literally put a 15-pound bag of charcoal, all through it to heat up the whole thing. Burn off any, existing residue and all that stuff. Sprayed it down with, misted it with, not olive oil, vegetable oil, stuff like that. Just out there, treating itself.
You guys have just learned a lot about Chris and the things that he gets excited about.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it.
I'm excited too because I'll be at that party eating the smoked meats that you cook on that. So.
Yeah, and pretty much anything I put on that grill, you will be eating.
That's a very forceful thing. You will do this.
No, I just know that most of the time when I grill, if it goes in my fridge as a leftover and Cole is anywhere nearby, it will be in his mouth.
It's true. That's very true.
So, what about you? What's your jam?
So I have started commuting up to Denver lately, which is loads of fun. For those of you who don't know the geography, where I'm living is about an hour south. So I've got a decent commute. So I've started listening to other podcasts. And one that I found recently, don't worry, it's not in competition with Between the Cons, because obviously I'm loyal. It's called
This is your
Lore.
only source for nerdy
Yes.
news.
Yeah. The podcast is called Lore. And it's produced and hosted, whatever the word is, by
Hosted by.
Yeah, a guy named Aaron Mahnke. He's a sci-fi horror writer, and the whole premise and of the podcast is talking about different pieces of folklore from around the country, like the U.S., but also like internationally, and kind of giving like history and telling stories about it. And it's kind of like a campfire setting. So each episode is like 15 to 20 minutes long. And it's basically him just like kind of giving an intro of like, vampires have been a thing that have been a part of like, our, literature for however many hundreds of years.
And what's it called?
Lore, like folklore without the folk.
Got it.
And so like, for example, he talks about Vlad the Impaler, and then how kind of history kind of weaved it, like how Vlad the Impaler was the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Count Dracula, and then how vampires, like, hey, maybe this outbreak of tuberculosis in the U.S. kind of fed into our fear of vampires in the early, 1800s, and it's like really cool because it's spooky for sure, because he talks about vampires and werewolves and hobgoblins and things like that, but he like gives kind of the historical maybe like etymology of the stories, and then also like tells, like, there have been a couple things where like he tells a story and I'm like, I'm questioning so many things about what I believe to be true right now. I don't even know what to do with myself. So if you're kind of into campfire ghost stories, and like I love especially learning history of folklore, I've really enjoyed it, and it's like bite-sized episodes. I listen to 3 or 4 on my way home from work, and it's a lot of fun.
I like their tagline. Their tagline is sometimes the truth is more frightening than fiction.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's some episodes that have like legitimately creeped me out, and it takes a lot to do that with like stuff like this. So I would encourage, if you're into that kind of thing, like if you love H.P. Lovecraft and not Twilight, because that doesn't count, but like werewolves and vampires, and like actual werewolves and vampires, not Twilight werewolves and vampires.
Right.
Definitely check this podcast out. There's a ton of episodes. Like I've been listening to it for a little over a week now, and I'm maybe 20 30 20 25 episodes in, and there's still like 40 or 45 more. So definitely check it out. He's got some books too, so I haven't read any of them, so I'm not going to plug them and say like absolutely you should read them, but
the world of lore, monstrous creatures.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy the podcast. So if you want something else that's kind of in the same realm, like loosely attached to
sci-fi,
cons, yeah, definitely check it out, because I think it'll be worth your time.
Huh. That's neat. I like it. I was just looking at their website. Their website's lorepodcast.com. It's a really sleek website. I really dig it. I might check that out. I can get down with that. But yeah, that's it. That's everything for the show. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, check out Patreon, Satchel, or Amazon. You can go to betweenthecons.com/any of those words and support however you see fit. Speaking of our website, betweenthecons.com, that is the place where you can check everything out about us. You can listen to all of our episodes online, streaming, obviously. And then you can also link out to all our social media sites, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, Satchel, Amazon,
Yes.
um,
MySpace.
MySpace, right? If you like our theme
Zanga.
music, you can check out Afixa, or you can go to betweenthecons.com/bandcamp, and that'll take you to his site to download some dope dubstep.
Dope stuff.
And then finally, make sure you guys tune in on Thursday because we're going to be back. The Outlaw Steve Jr. is coming, and we are going to give you all the latest and greatest nerdy news in Pineapple. So you don't want to miss that. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the show every Monday and Thursday. We've got new content, and that's everything I've got. You guys have a great week. Hang in there. And we'll be back on Thursday.
Bye-bye now. Meow, meow, meow.